we're going to try to make Grandma's Nacarato's spaghetti sauce. I'm going to tell you what the ingredients are, and then we'll go ahead and film the other stuff as we go along. First of all, you need a can of tomatoes. And I use these tomatoes because they're the best tomatoes in the world. They come from Italy and use the chef cut. Then we're going to use 2 cans, and these are 29-ounce tomato sauce. We're going to use 2 cans of that along with 1 can of tomatoes. And then we're going to use, this is a 12-ounce can of tomato paste. And we're going to use 2 cans of tomato paste for each can of tomato sauce. So it's 1 to 2. Now if you don't use the tomatoes, you can use 3 cans of sauce, but I recommend using the tomatoes. We're going to use olive oil. That's important, olive oil. We're going to use salt and pepper. Oh, turn this around. See, black pepper. We're going to use some bay leaves. We're going to use some whole oregano. We're going to use some, well, I say whole oregano, it's leaf oregano. And we're going to use some basil. Basil was my option in it because Grandma Nacarato only used oregano, but I like basil in mine. We're going to use 2 fairly large onions. I like to use sweet onions. Back in the days, Grandma just used yellow onions, but I think sweet onions taste better. We're going to use almost that whole, not necessarily clove, I don't know what they call it, that whole thing of garlic. And then we're going to use some red wine. Red wine is an option, but red wine is going to make it better because it takes the tartiness of the tomatoes out. So it just gives a little better flavor. You can either use the cooking kind that you can buy on the counter, or you can go to the local wine store and buy some deep red wine because the alcohol is going to boil out anyway. Got the meat. You have to use some stew meat. And I recommend at least a pound of stew meat, nothing less than a pound of stew meat. This happens to be 1.32 pounds. So about this much stew meat goes into it. Sometimes if you can find some steak that's on sale for cheaper than stew meat, you can buy it, cut it up in pieces, and use that. But usually you want to try to get, see, I'm going to cut this in half, this piece of stew meat. I'll cut it to where you've got a piece of meat that's about like this, these size of meat, kind of like the size of your thumb, if you look at it like that. Alright, let's take a minute and we'll get this stuff ready. The other thing in cooking spaghetti sauce is to have a good pot. This particular pot has got a good solid bottom that's got some thickness to it so that it maintains and holds the heat. If you get a thin bottom pan, you're going to burn the sauce. It won't work. You really need a good thick conductive heat surface to let your sauce cook slow temperature and not burn. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this meat, we're going to get it cut up into these smaller pieces, like say thumb size. Move some of this stuff out of the way so you can see. You can cut it smaller if you want to. I just think it is good about that size because what happens is this cooks over a period of 4, 5, 6 hours. This meat will break down, and pretty soon you say, gee, where did the lumps of meat go? And they've actually broken down and they're just mixed through the sauce. So it makes it, you know, kind of all through the sauce. It's little slivers of meat, you might say. But this is a pretty lean spaghetti sauce meat. I've seen my grandma cook it where she's actually using pork. She'll use a pork rib, something like that. It just gives a little different flavor. I don't care for it myself, but it can be done with a pork rib. What happens is all the meat on the ribs cook off because of the time on the stove at temperature, and then you just take the bones out and then you've got the pork meat in it. But it does flavor it just a little bit different. So as you get this cut up, it doesn't take very long to get it into thumb sizes. Make sure you don't cut your thumb off, of course. And that just all goes in the pan. And then, I never measure anything. As you can see there, it's probably, I'm going to guess it's probably a half a cup of olive oil. But what you want is enough olive oil in there basically to cover the bottom of the pan. And really you can't put too much olive oil in. So that's just kind of like that. And at this point in the stage of the game, we're going to put some salt and pepper in. And salt and pepper is really to taste. Again, there's no measurement, but this is going to be a big pot of sauce. So we can put, you know, I'm going to guess it's maybe a half a teaspoon. I'm not sure. And again, with salt, just some salt. You can always add salt to it later. We're going to get this on the stove starting to cook. And of course what we want to do is cook it on high temperature until it starts to brown up really good. So now we want to take our onions and you want to make the onions so that they're diced. When I say diced, you don't want big pieces of onion. Again, they're going to boil down, but you want to be able to take the onion and dice it in pieces about this size here, which is, as you can see, about like this here. They'll fall apart as they start cooking. Again, it's going to look like a lot of onions to begin with, but it really isn't because they cook down so much. The juices and all that come out of them and they cook down to almost nothing. You don't even hardly see them in spaghetti sauce. I wouldn't chop them up any finer than that. I would leave them like that. It's kind of a coarse dice, but they're not chopped real fine. And they're not real big heavy pieces, like maybe you put in soup. And what you're going to do with these is, when that meat starts to brown, or starts to cook I should say, you're actually going to throw these onions in with it to brown up with the meat. So we're going to finish this up. As you look at it, you can see it looks like a lot of onions, but it really isn't. Two good sized onions or 3 medium onions is probably about right.
Right.
Your garlic. It's funny because garlic is a sticky thing. I don't know if you've ever, you can see it sticking to my fingers now. And garlic you don't have to chop up too fine. I like it in slices myself. So what I do is get the biggest pieces off of there, about like that. I don't want to get some of this paper in my onions. You can hear the meat sizzling over there. Just crack these open so we can peel them. Take the smaller knife. You see they start to fall apart a little bit. Get that paper off. That made it smashed. There we go. So what we want to do is take these and just kind of slice them out like that. They're just not chopped up fine, but yet they're still fairly good sized pieces.
And how much of the garlic was that?
That was almost the whole clove, because all you've got left is that little piece that's left out of that one bud.
Okay.
I guess the right name's a bud, this is a clove. So probably 10 cloves of garlic. I don't think, of course I'm a garlic lover, so I don't think you can put too much garlic in it.
Right.
And obviously as it cooks down, the garlic mellows out and it's not as strong as you think it might be. And see how it sticks to your fingers? Be interesting to put a whole clove like that in there.
Yeah.
See if anybody found it and what they would say. Out last night, out eating at the Italian restaurant, Kitty said, "Oh, this has got too much garlic and flavor in it." But I tasted it, and I didn't think it had too much garlic flavor in it. It was just good garlic. Garlic's good for you too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Make sure we get all of the paper out of it. And you can hear the meat sizzling over there, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the meat isn't cooked by any means at this point, but it's got a good temperature going on it, and this is sizzling pretty good. So now we want to put the onions and the garlic in it. You see the, turn a light on here.
There it is.
Maybe you see how it's starting to bubble there.
Yeah.
So we're just going to put the onion and garlic in there and let it cook up a little bit. Get our spoon, stir this around. Still look like a lot of onions, huh?
Yeah.
It's not. Okay, bring that back up to temperature. I'm going to wash the stickiness of the garlic off my hands. Okay, so we need to get a can opener. We're going to open these cans. The next step is we're going to put the basil, oregano, and bay leaves in. I usually put them in after the meat's almost brown because I don't like to fry the oregano and spices too much. Just a little bit, and then I've seen some people where they'll actually put the tomato sauce in and then put the oregano in. I like the oregano in just a little bit before I do that, just to fry it up a little bit but not burn it. So that's what we're going to do. The wine goes in after you get all of the tomatoes in and get it mixed in good. And usually I would put, for this size of pot, probably a half a cup of wine. And it just, like I say, it takes some of the tartness of the tomato away. It's a chemical reaction that causes the tomatoes not to be quite as tart. So we'll find a can opener and we'll open our can. I'll show you these tomatoes are different than the canned tomatoes, Hunt's canned tomatoes. Normally when you open a can of tomatoes, the tomato juice is more like water, where this is actually a tomato sauce in it.
Yeah.
And it, you can see the tomatoes are cut up kind of fine on this chef cuts, but it's a tomato sauce instead of just kind of a liquid that Hunt's and the rest of the brands are. So if you can make it with this kind, yes. And they used to say they come from Italy, but I think the ones that come from Italy now are a little bit more expensive, but this has still got the good tomato sauce base.
Right.
So we're happy with that. This is still starting to bubble again back to temperature. We're going to let it fry up in there until we get a little brown. I'll show you the brown around the edges when it starts getting cooked. Okay, so this is cooked down for a little while now. You can see how the onions have come down. The juices from the onion has got in there. It's not nearly ready yet to add the tomato sauce because we're going to let it brown a little bit. But this is about the time I would put in the basil leaves. And I like to find some whole ones. There's a bunch of chunk ones in here. Take those out. Maybe about 4 basil leaves if we can find some full basil leaves. These seem to be in pieces, but and we're going to put in one more half like that. So that's our basil in there. Most of those leaves will soften up as they get back and rehydrate in the juices. Okay, I don't measure, but I just know how much I want. This is basil, and I'm going to put.
Okay, so was that oregano we were putting in?
No, that was bay,
or basil leaves.
Bay leaves.
Oh, bay leaves. Okay.
So I'm going to put in about that much basil twice.
Okay.
So There's our basil. If I was guessing, I would say it's probably a tablespoon,
Yeah.
twice. So 2 tablespoons. Now here's our oregano. To me, I don't think you can get enough oregano in it, but you have to be careful. So again, 1, 2, I would go with probably 3, maybe even 4.
Okay.
And then just mix that in again. Now you can start smelling it, yeah? I mean, of course on camera you can't smell it.
Right.
Now you can smell it, smelling like something Italian.
Yeah, it's starting to smell
'Cause
like,
those,
I remember the sauce smelling.
yeah, those spices are starting to now cook
Yeah.
in. Now what they'll do is they'll brown up a little bit with the meat, but not burn. Come around here, you can start to see on the side of the pan how we're starting to get a little bit of brown right there. And that's what we're trying to create, is some brownness on the pan, so that when we put the sauce in, or the tomato paste and that in, it just picks up some of that flavor from the browning.
Right.
We'll give it a little time here to cook. It's gonna, juices from the onion are gonna cook down a little bit and get a little drier. Okay, if you look in the pan here, you can start to see how the juices are starting to thicken up just a little bit. That's because they're rendering down from the onions. So it's getting about halfway to where it needs to be before we put the tomato sauce in. Well, that's rendering down, cooking down, browning up. We can come back over here and we can start cleaning our messes up. As you can see, as I cook, I make a big mess. But while that's doing that, you can start cleaning up your station. Your things put away, wiped off, your knives put away because we're done with them. And by the time we get this cleaned up, that sauce or that meat might be ready to put the tomato paste in. Okay, this is cooked down a little bit again, and you can see now it's starting to stick just a little bit to the bottom of the pan, and that's okay. You see how you can scrape some of that off the bottom? And you see, again, you can see more oil instead of a lot of liquid now, but the flavor's in there. And you look at the side of the pan, I don't know if you can see it from there, how it's starting to get a little brown on the side.
Yeah.
Pretty soon the bottom of our pan will look a little bit like that. And that's going to be about the time that we want to put the actual tomato paste in, sauce paste in. And what it'll do is, as the paste goes in, it will take, I can't remember what they call it, but it'll take that brownness off of the bottom, mix it in with the juices, and it just gives it lots of flavor. So we probably got another 5 minutes of this, and then we can put the sauce in.
All right.
So the meat doesn't actually get brown, it just gets cooked. And right now it's going to be really, really tough because it's stew meat. But after this cooks for 4 or 5 hours, it's going to be, like I say, just break apart. You can see how it's starting to do this to the bottom.
Yeah. How long would you say we've been cooking this for?
Oh, it's probably been what? 10 minutes? Maybe at a hard boil like this,
Yeah.
after we've added everything. Getting up close though. You can hear it start to sizzle again instead of just bubbling. You can see the, I don't know if you can see on the film, but some of the onions are starting to get a little bit of brown to them. You hear that sizzle going again. So a lot of times cooking is a lot of looking and listening and smelling. Unlike the cookie I burned last night. Trying to make a cookie in a microwave.
Too much smelling.
Doesn't work. From cookie dough? Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah, no.
Tried it, done that, been there.
Not a good idea.
No.
Listen to Grandpa. Don't do it.
Don't do it. See, you can start to hear how it's like it's frying again instead of boiling. You know what I mean? The difference between boiling and frying.
Yeah.
Because there's not as much liquid now. It's
Right.
Kind of dissipated out with the cooking of it. But it's getting close. Not quite yet. I mean, we'd be all right if we wanted to put this stuff in now, but we're going to give it a little bit longer.
Okay.
The that smell. I love that smell. I just
Yeah.
love the smell. My house, when we move into a new house, it isn't home until we make it smell like spaghetti sauce. Okay, look right here. You see how it's starting to stick to the bottom just a little bit?
Yeah.
We get real close. We don't want to burn. We just want it to surround that bottom a little bit, kind of like what's on the side there. Hope you can see that on the tape when you're done. Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah.
Just watch what happens. You can actually just scrapes off.
Yeah.
When you put the liquid in there, it comes right back off and becomes part of it. You see how hot that side is. Yeah, see how it's starting to stick on the bottom again?
Yep.
See how when I scrape it, it comes off?
Yeah.
Look at that nice sized garlic. So what we're going to do, first of all, when we do this, we're going to put in the tomatoes, and when we do that, we're also going to put in a can of water with it,
Okay.
because tomato sauce and tomato paste will burn at a very, very low temperature. So you have to be careful with it. So I always add the little bit of water and tomatoes, let that boil for a minute, then add the sauce and that. And I'll show you how much other water we have to put in because you got to get the right thickness.
Right.
Okay, see how that's starting to stick now?
Yeah.
So we're back there. So I'm going to stir this. You can see there. I'm going to stir this in and I'm going to put the tomatoes in. You see how the onions have basically almost disappeared? But the flavor's there. So
Yeah.
we're going to take the tomatoes, dump the whole can of tomatoes in. I'm going to get a can of water. Always try to rinse the can out so you get all the flavor from the tomatoes. This is going to drop the temperature. It's going to take a little while for it to come back up, but almost a can of water. Put in there. It's going to deglaze the bottom of the pan. You can see how that side stuff's coming off.
Yeah.
See a little bit of browning, almost a little bit of browning in that tomato. You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. That makes it really flavorful. So we'll let that boil again, come back to a boil.
Okay.
It's still on high. The temperature of the burner
Yeah.
is still on high. In a little bit we're going to turn that down so we don't burn the tomato paste and sauce.
Okay.
I always clean up as I go. I'm just one of those persons that have to have the cleanup rag in my hand to wipe things up as I go. So when we do this, we're going to put the tomato sauce in first, so there's liquid, because if you look at your tomato paste, obviously tomato paste is really thick.
Yeah.
So we don't want to just dump that into something not as liquidy. So we're going to put that in as the last ingredient. But it goes along pretty fast.
Okay.
I mean, you put the sauce in, you put the tomato paste in right after and mix it up and then see how much water you need to put in.
Yeah.
We're going to get this back up to temperature again, because as soon as we put the tomato paste and tomato sauce in, it's going to drop down again.
Right.
Thing about making sauce is you need to make sure that you're going to be around to stir it, because it needs to be stirred about every 20 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to move this from the big burner. We're going to move this to the back burner. I don't know if you can see the back burner back here, right here. It's a smaller burner. But this is going to be turned down. This flame on this is going to be turned down to almost about right there, and it's still going to be boiling. So
Okay.
once that gets up to heat, that's all the heat you're going to have on there, and it's going to be boiling pretty hard. And it still could burn. That's why you have to stir it every 20 minutes. And and when you're stirring it, you can feel the bottom. If it's starting to thicken up on the bottom, you're going to have a tendency to burn because it just gets a thicker base, and you don't want that to happen. And I'll show you as we go because you can pick it up on the spoon. But then you've got to turn around and turn this even down low as possible it can go. Because
Yeah.
so, in this burner that we have on right now, you can't turn it down low enough without the sauce burning. It just wouldn't happen. We can bring it up to heat and get it going, but you can see now it's starting to bubble again.
Yeah.
We're going to let it get, good and hot. Then there's a couple tricks that I learned when you put the water in. We're going to make once it's in there, we're going to make sure that the stir can stand up without falling over.
Okay.
And we'll know we've got just about the right amount of liquid in it.
All right.
So that's coming back up. There's another thing. See the oil right here? How the oil's kind of separated?
Yeah.
Once we start cooking the sauce, that's going to disappear and it's all just going to be sauce. But when the sauce starts to get done, meaning after 3 or 4 hours of cooking, you're going to get that oil starting to separate from the tomato base again. It'll come up on the top of the surface of it, and then you know the sauce is about, probably done at that point in time.
Yeah.
Because it just has that little bit of oil, olive oil that comes up the top. But it'll disappear again when we add the tomato base until it cooks.
Okay.
Temperatures drop so fast when you add the cool stuff to it, and obviously tomato paste will burn at too high a temperature. Tomatoes you put in soup and you can boil all day long, but without a problem. Okay, so now we're going to dump in the sauce. Dump in some more sauce. So now we got the 2 cans of sauce in there. Now we're going to spoon in, or whatever this thing's called. Come on.
I don't know.
What are these things called? Scrapers?
The spatula?
So, yeah, there you go. Spatula it in. I like them. You can use a spoon, but I like them because they get around the edges, and tomato paste is so thick it's hard to get all the goodies out of it with a spoon.
Yeah.
So we put this in. 2 more cans to go. And I know right now it needs more water. 1 can of water is not going to do it. So when we get these done, what we're going to do is get that water out of the tap hot. And then we're going to, I'll show you, we're going to put some water in each one of these cans and go back and forth with it to try to clean the cans out as much as possible.
Okay.
I don't know if people do that anymore, but Grandma would always make sure that the can was almost clean before she would. And if you look in there, see if you can get a shot of the can. That's how it looks when you scrape it out. But what we're going to do is get some hot water in here. You want to make it as hot as possible before we drop the temperature in that pan again. You can see it's already starting to bubble a little bit around the edges again.
Yeah.
Takes a long time to get some hot water up there. Assume that's hot, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, here it comes. Okay. So we're going to take these 2 cans, tomato paste cans, and fill it 3/4 full. And then we're just going to go back and forth try to clean up as much of that out of the cans as possible. Some people say, you don't need to do that. Well, you don't need to, but it's kind of fun. Hey, you got fun? You see the water's getting more tomatoey?
Yeah.
And then we'll put it in there. And then we'll take the other 2 cans, do the same thing. Of course, the hotter the tap water is, the faster it cleans the can out. Mm-hmm. Then you can look in there and you see it's cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah.
I know Grandma would do it until it was clean. Get every little morsel of tomato out of there. Okay, so we have all of our ingredients in to make the sauce. Now what we need to do is, well, we're still missing the wine if you're going to put wine in it. Mm-hmm. So keep in mind if you're going to put wine in it, we need to make sure that we don't get it too. But we need to mix this in. You can see it's just a big glob of paste. Mm-hmm. And obviously, as this is warm, the paste breaks down with the liquid in it. And just gently stir it until it breaks down and dissolves. And see, there's no stickiness on the bottom at all. It's just a clean bottom. Mm-hmm. Want to make sure the water and the sauce is all mixed together so we can see the density of the sauce that we're starting to cook. You notice it stands up now.
Yep.
We don't want it thin enough so it falls over. And it's just a matter of taste. You could make thinner sauce if you wanted. It's looking really pretty good if we're going to have a cup of wine to it. Mm-hmm. So again, that stands up. I mean, you can put it at level. And so again, I don't measure with a thing, but maybe half a can, 3/4 of a can. Dump it in now. And that's probably going to be enough liquid. Mm-hmm. You smell a little bit of the wine now. It'll actually dissipate to where you won't smell wine. It just, like I said before, it kind of takes the tartness of the tomatoes away.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one thing that you could do at this point, or prior to this point, if you wanted to. My grandma never made it this way, but you could take a carrot. If you want a little sweeter sauce, you take a carrot and you do a fine grate on one big carrot, and you throw it in when you do the onions. And it will make the sauce a little bit sweeter. The difference is, though, is the carrot don't break down and disappear. They're still there a little bit. And Amber doesn't like the carrots, so.
Yeah.
And I usually don't make it with carrots in it. I make a version of this for mussel sauce with carrots in it. It just makes it a little sweeter. But I think that's about the right density right there. You can see it, how it comes.
Yeah.
So I'll dip this in. You can see how it's kind of coated that, and if we knock it off. So now what we need to do is we need to watch it, meaning that we need to stand here for a few minutes, get it up to temperature.
Okay.
The burner's still on full-blown hot, so we need to make sure that we're here stirring it because it'll burn too fast. But I like to get the temperature back as fast as I can, so I'll stand around and spend 10 minutes stirring it on for maybe 8 minutes. And if you look at where the heat level is down there, you can see how low I've turned that down. Okay, watch what happens when I lift this lid up. You want to be careful when you lift this lid up because it's actually boiling and popping. You see how it's popped on the lid already? But you can see that how it pops up. So when you take the lid off, you need to be careful, but it needs to be stirred so that we don't burn the bottom. So about every 10 minutes till we get this going, it needs to be stirred again. Then we'll put the lid back on and we'll look at it in about 8 minutes again. And then pretty soon we're going to move it to that little burner in the back so that it doesn't get too hot. The other thing about spaghetti sauce, after you've cooked it for 2 or 3 hours, you need to have a loaf of bread handy. Whether it's French bread, Italian bread, whatever kind of bread, because what you're obviously going to do is take a piece of bread, take a spoonful of sauce, and you're going to put on the bread to see if it tastes the way you want to taste. Not really, but it sure tastes good, so you keep doing it. Mm-hmm. See how fast that's starting to bubble down there again? Pop, it's already popped all over down here, so we just keep it covered. And a lot of times once it starts heating up, if you're capable, it's better to slide it off the heat a little bit to start because it'll just keep popping. It reminds me of Yellowstone, the way the hot pools pop, the mud pot things pop up. Mm-hmm. That does the same thing because it cooks at such a lower temperature.
Yeah.
And you can hear it. Hear it in there?
Yeah.
Anyway, fun. Take a peek again. We should quit peeking and let it heat up.
Probably.
It's stove for about 2 hours. I want to show you something. As I lift this lid, always be careful lifting it because look what it's doing. How hard it's boiling. See that? Mm-hmm. Okay, and just look at the flame, how low it is. There's hardly a flame there. I don't even know if you can see it.
You can't. You can barely see that.
So that's how hard it will boil with that little bit of flame on it. And if you notice how you can see some that's starting to stick to the spoon, that's off the bottom. Mm-hmm. And if you don't stir that, it'll end up burning instead of coming off the bottom. So we just have to keep doing it until another few hours, until it has a little oil in it. It's 6.5 hours now. I want you to see how that oil is separated a little bit. You can see it kind of sitting there on top. I don't know if you can see it with the camera or not, but right there the oil is separated from the tomatoes a little bit, right over here. Anyway, that's done. We can stir it again. Turn the heat off. And you see how the meat is just, well, you can't see it's tender, but it's tender and juicy and falls apart. And it's just delicious. Okay. Ta-da!
Yep.
Push it again.